Everyone is back, right? I'm trying to represent this in a matrix format. See, all the equations that we will be studying in digital signal processing, that is in this course. Almost every equation that we study in the subject EC301 digital signal processing has got a form of a multiplication and accumulation. So let me show for this example. Okay. So you have this expression x of k is equal to sigma n is equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n into wn raised to nk. Wn raised to nk. Right? For nk less than or equal to 0 to n minus 1. So I'll also write nk in the range 0, 1, 2, etc. up to n minus 1. This is understood, right? So which means I can write x of 0. What will be x of 0? So each element of x of k will write. X of 0 should be therefore equal to sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n into w n raised to n into 0. So that is 1. The second part reduces to 1. So therefore we can write this as I will expand this and write x of 0 plus x of 1 plus x of 2 plus etc. up to x of n minus 1. So that is x of 0. So likewise, let me write the expression for x of 1. So x of 1 again, what will be x of 1? X of 1 would be x of 0 plus x of 1 into wn raised to n into 1. So that will be wn. So here n is equal to 1 and here k is equal to 1. So you are evaluating for k equal to 1. So x of 1 into wn, right? Plus x of 2 into wn raised to 2 plus etc. up to x of n minus 1 into wn raised to n minus 1. Is that okay? So this would be therefore x of 0 plus x of 1 into wn, that is x of 0, n equal to 0 is x of 0 into wn raised to 0 into 1. So that is x of 0 plus second is x of 1 into wn raised to 1 into 1, that is wn raised to 1. The next one would be x of 2 into wn raised to 2 into 1, that is wn square, plus etc. So the last one would be x of n minus 1 into wn raised to n minus 1. So likewise, I can write expression for x of 2. X of 2 would be x of 2 is equal to x of 0 plus x of 1 into wn raised to nk, that is n is what? K is 2, so that will be wn raised to 2 plus x of 2 into wn raised to n is equal to 2, k is equal to 2, so that wn raised to 4 plus etc. up to x of n minus 1 into wn raised to 2 into n minus 1. Is that clear? Continuing like this, I can write the expression for x of n minus 1, and now x of n minus 1 would be x of 0 plus x of 1 into wn raised to n minus 1 plus x of 2 into Wn raised to 2 into n minus 1 plus etc. up to x of n minus 1 into Wn raised to n is n minus 1, k is also equal to n minus 1. So W raised to n minus 1 into n minus 1. So see that we have several equations. So tell me how many equations are there? How many equations are we talking about? Abhishek, ഇതിനെല്ലാം കൂടെ എത്ര equations ഉണ്ട്? X of 0 to x of n minus എന്നത് എത്ര equation ഉണ്ട്?
Sir, hello.
എത്ര equations ഉണ്ട്? അഭിഷേക് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത് കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ലേ? ഇത് ഒരു equation, രണ്ടാമത്തെ equation, അങ്ങനെ എത്ര equation ഉണ്ട്?
n minus 1.
എന്തോടെ? X of 0 എന്നല്ലേ തുടങ്ങുന്നത്?
n equations.
There are n equations. Okay? So you require to find out capital X of 0, capital X of 1, capital X of 2, etc. up to capital X of n minus 1. So these are n simultaneous equations. N simultaneous equations. No, these are n equations. So if you know what are the values of x of 0, x of 1, x of 2, etc. up to x of n minus 1, do you understand this? If you know the values of x of 0, x of 1, etc. up to x of n minus 1, and from that you can calculate x of 0, x of 1, x of 2, x of n minus 1. The small x in the values are reactive. If you know the values of all the small x from the time instant 0 to n minus 1, then you will be able to find out all the values of capital X for all frequency instances from k equal to 0 to n minus 1. So you see that this equation has the form of a product here. So initially you have a multiplication and then you have a summation. So in fact, every DSP equation that you will be studying from now onwards have this form, that is a sum of a product, which you have studied in digital electronics. You can call it as a sum of product expression. So here we call this as a this operation we call as a multiply and accumulate operation. Multiply and accumulate operation. So we will call this as a multiply and accumulate operation. Or we will call this as MAC, because this is a standard digital signal processing operation. Every operation that we study conforms to this specification, this expression called as multiply and accumulate. So whatever we study are all multiply and accumulate operations. So you have seen microprocessors and microcontrollers in the previous semester. So which was the microprocessor that you had studied first? കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷം പഠിച്ച മൈക്രോപ്രോസസർ ഏതായിരുന്നു? Anyone can answer? കുര്യാക്കോസ് ഉണ്ടോ?
Yes, sir.
കുര്യാക്കോസ് കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷം പഠിച്ച മൈക്രോപ്രോസസർ ഏതാണ്?
8085.
അതിനുശേഷം പഠിച്ച മൈക്രോ കൺട്രോളർ ഏതാണ്? ഓർക്കുന്നില്ലേ? ഏത് സബ്ജക്റ്റാണ് പഠിക്കുന്നത്? ഇലക്ട്രോണിക്സ് അല്ലേ? അപ്പൊ മൈക്രോ കൺട്രോളർ ഏതാ പഠിച്ചെന്ന് ഓർമ്മയില്ല. അതായത് അത് ഭയങ്കര മോശമായിട്ടൊരു ഉത്തരവാണ് കേട്ടോ. മൈക്രോ കൺട്രോളർ പഠിച്ചത് ഓർക്കുന്നതെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഇനിയുള്ള ജോലി കിട്ടാൻ പോകുന്നത് എംബഡഡ് സിസ്റ്റം ഡിസൈനിലുള്ള ഒരു ജോലിയാണ് കിട്ടാൻ പോകുന്നത്, ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നത്. പഠിച്ച മൈക്രോ കൺട്രോളർ ഓർക്കുന്നില്ല എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഏറ്റവും വളരെ മോശമായ ഒരു ഉത്തരവാണത്. ആർക്കെങ്കിലും പറയാം മൈക്രോ കൺട്രോളർ ഏതാ പഠിച്ചത്? ഓർക്കുന്നില്ല എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വളരെ ഒരു റബ്ബിഷ് ആൻസർ ആണ്.
Sir, it's for this sem. We just started with.
You are studying microprocessor this semester. Microcontroller this semester. ഈ സെമസ്റ്റർ ആണോ പഠിക്കുന്നത്?
Yes sir.
നേരത്തെ പഠിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. ഓക്കെ. അപ്പൊ കുര്യാക്കോസ് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞ തിരിച്ചെടുത്തു. പക്ഷെ എങ്കിലും ഒരു മൈക്രോ പ്രോസസറും മൈക്രോ കൺട്രോളറും തമ്മിലുള്ള വ്യത്യാസം എന്താണെന്ന് പറയാം ആർക്കെങ്കിലും? Can you explain what's the difference between a microprocessor and a microcontroller?
Sir, microcontroller is a single unit computer system, like it's microprocessor plus other data, other processes
You have other peripherals
in it.
incorporated
Yeah,
with
sir.
the microprocessor. അത് പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ട് ശരിയല്ല. So അത് വളരെ ജനറിക്, വളരെ എന്താ പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു layman's explanation ആണ്. Microprocessor and microcontroller. The purpose of a microprocessor and a microcontroller are different. You cannot do all that you can do with a microprocessor with a microcontroller. So microcontroller is not a better microprocessor. It is not a microprocessor with all facilities of microprocessors plus some peripherals that are incorporated into the microprocessor. A microcontroller is a specific device that is used for certain applications. As its name suggests, it is used mostly in control applications, microcontrollers. So you have output and input ports which you can access, and you can use it to control certain processes. You can access certain processes and you can control certain processes. You can run algorithms to control certain processes. So you cannot just generalize and say microcontroller is a better version of a microprocessor. That's not the answer. So if that were the case, then you only need to incorporate certain peripherals onto your latest microprocessor. Latest, let's say latest series of Intel or latest series of AMD, Athlon or whatever, and then you incorporate certain peripherals, and you cannot start calling this a microcontroller. The architectural design of a microprocessor and a microcontroller are different, which you will be studying in detail in the subject that you are going to see in this semester. So I think you will be studying the 89C51 microcontroller in this semester in addition to the 8085 microprocessor. So 8085 would be the first microprocessor that you are going to see, probably. And later you will be able to build on the microprocessor architectures that you have studied, and you want to see different kinds of microprocessor architectures. Now, for a microprocessor, you have what is known as its assembly language. For example, 8085 has got an instruction called add in its assembly language. So it can add two numbers. It can add two numbers from the memory, or it can add a number from the memory onto whatever is there in an internal register and store it somewhere. So add is an instruction in a microprocessor. You do not have a multiply instruction in 8085, but in a higher microprocessor you have a multiply instruction. And if you need to implement a multiply and accumulate operation, like for example here, you have a multiply and accumulate operation, sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1. So this is a multiply and accumulate operation. Here you have a multiply and accumulate operation. So this can be implemented as a for loop. You see, if you write a C program, or if you write a Python program or whatever, you will implement this as a for loop. You have to take x of n from somewhere. X of n could be stored in the memory, and then you have to compute w n raised to nk for each value of n, and then you have to multiply x of n by w n raised to nk, and then you have to evaluate this for n equal to 0 to n minus 1. So that will give you for one value of k, then you have to evaluate for all values of k, that is k take values from 0 to n minus 1. So which means by using two for loops, for let's say n equal to 0 to n minus 1 and for k equal to 0 to n minus 1, you can write a high level language program, that's a C language program or a Python program to compute x of k. Now you can write the same in assembly language also, but you don't have a dedicated hardware for computing this multiply and accumulate. So you have to use the multiplier block, and then you have to use the multiplier block many times to add the elements. And finally, after writing this entire program, then you will get the value for one value for x of k. That's what, let's say k is equal to 3. You can evaluate x of 3, then you can evaluate x of 4, x of 5, x of up to x of n minus. So that is how you write the program. If it were a general purpose microprocessor, but for a microprocessor that is tuned for digital signal processing operations, for a microprocessor tuned for DSP operations, you have seen that this multiply and accumulate appears everywhere. So it will greatly save you your computational burden So if you have a hardware structure for doing this multiply and accumulate, the hardware itself does multiply and accumulate. Say for example, if you feed to one this multiply and accumulator operator, one array containing x of n and the second array containing w address n k, then the hardware structure itself can compute sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n w raised to n k. So that is called as a multiply and accumulate operation. In DSP process, you have what is known as the load from a memory and then do multiply and accumulate. So you have load, multiply and accumulate, or maybe you also have multiply, accumulate and store. So that way you can load x of n and do multiply and accumulate, and then you can maybe store onto some other location. So DSP operations generally require, generally not almost every time it requires multiply and accumulate operation. So you will require dedicated hardware blocks in the microprocessor for doing DSP operations, which we call as digital signal processors. So digital signal processors will have multiply and accumulate of units, hardware multiply and accumulate units. You don't have to implement this using a multiplication, and you don't have to write a for loop to do this multiply and accumulate. So anyhow, what I wanted to say, highlight here, all those we will discuss later when we look at DSP hardware. So what I wanted to highlight here is this. You have n equations. You have x of 0 to x of n minus 1 that are known. Small x are known. You can compute all the values of w raised to 1 to w raised to n minus 1 into n minus 1. So all values can be computed, which means now you will be able to represent this in a matrix format like this. So let me share the PowerPoint presentation once again. Is this PowerPoint presentation visible? Someone please answer that. Otherwise, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So now you will be able to represent this in a matrix vector multiplication format. This multiply and accumulate operation you can now represent in the matrix vector multiplication format. We call this as MVM for short, matrix vector multiplication format. This is very important because especially when you start looking at some journal papers on DSP, you mostly might find these kind of matrix vector multiplication formats. Matrix vector multiplication format. Like for example, this is the time domain signal. X of 0, X of 1, X of 2, X of X of n minus 1 is my time domain signal. How many samples are there in the time domain signal? How many samples are there in the time domain signal?
Sir, n sample.
N samples. And now you are required to analyze this finite duration time domain sequence. When you analyze this finite duration time domain sequence, you get a frequency domain representation of the finite domain sequence, which also has got n samples. So these are n samples of x of e for j omega, as we will be later seeing. This is just one cycle of the discrete Fourier series, as we already have seen. So x of e for j omega, where omega is evaluated from 0 to n minus 1, 0 to 2 pi by n into n minus 1. So these are the samples. So you have an n-dimensional vector here. This is called as a vector. This is a column vector representation of your finite duration input signal. And this is a column vector representation of your n-dimensional output discrete spectra, discrete output spectra, because it's discrete. Now this may be related by means of a what? A matrix equation. So this is important. So let us evaluate for x of 0. So that is evaluated by multiplying this row by the column here. So x of 0 would be therefore x of 0 plus x of 1 plus x of 2 plus etc. to x of n minus 1. So that was the first equation that we had seen. We had seen n simultaneous equations. This is the first simultaneous equation. Now x of 1 would be x of 0 plus x of 1 into wn plus x of 2 into wn square plus x of 3 into wn cube plus etc. up to x of n minus n into wn raised to n minus n, which was your second of the set of simultaneous equations. Continuing, x of 2 we can write it likewise, and x of n minus n would be x of 0 into 1 plus wn raised to n minus 1 into x of 1 plus wn raised to n minus 1 into 2 into x of 2 plus etc. up to x of n minus 1 into wn raised to n minus 1 into n minus n. Note that each of these rows represents a unique value for k. So this row is for k equal to 0. First row by first column gives you the value for k equal to 0. So the first row is for k equal to 0. So along the row you have k. So the first row is for k equal to 0. So I have shown this to be increasing downwards. So first row is k equal to 0. And along the column numbers, you have the value for n. So for example, this is used for multiplying x of 0. This will multiply x of 1. This will multiply x of 2, x of 3, etc. This is multiplying x of n minus n. So here you have n. So n is increasing like this. N is increasing from left to right. K is increasing from top to bottom. So this is your matrix format. Is that understood? Is this understood? I can represent this computation of discrete Fourier transform as a matrix vector multiplication format. Is this understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is very important now. Now let us start with a very simple question to illustrate the computation of a discrete Fourier transform. We'll start with a very simple example. Let me start by computing the n point DFT. So we will compute the n point DFT of, just a second, n point DFT of a sequence. We will look at two sequences and we will look at the n point DFSS and the n point DFT. So let me look at the two sequences. I'll now share the whiteboard again. Okay. This is visible, right? Okay, so let me just clear the screen and we will start by doing a very simple example. Okay. Okay, so let me look at the sequence which is marked like this. So pardon my drawing because I'm not very familiar with this device as of now. So maybe I will get better in course of time. So 0, the samples are like this. So this value is equal to 1. So this is my x of n. Okay. I need you to compute what is x of k. So we'll start with a very simple question. What is the DFT of this sequence? So x of n is this sequence actually. What we have written here is x of n is equal to 1, 0, 0, 0. This is the sequence, right? X of n is 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So I can also write this as x of n is equal to delta n, right? Because all the other values are equal to 0. X of n is delta n. So how will you find out x of k? So x of k is equal to sigma of delta n into w n raised to kn or nk. So what is this equal to? Sigma or n equal to 0 to n minus 1. So we'll put the numerical values. So I will just represent this as sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n w n raised to nk, where k n are less than are between 0 to n minus 1, which I'm not going to write every time. So this you can write as sigma n is equal to 0 to what is n minus 1 here? This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So n minus 1 is 5, right? So n is equal to 0 to 5 of x of n into w n raised to nk, x of n into w n raised to nk. So which you can write as equal to what? X of 0 is 1, 1 into n, now n is 5, so this should be w, this, sorry, n is equal to 6, so this should be w6, w6 raised to nk, so this you can write as x of 1 into w1 into w6 raised to 0 plus 0 into w6 raised to 1 plus etc. up to etc. So the last term would be 0 into w6 raised to 5, right? So this is just equal to 1. So what does it indicate? So what does this indicate? This indicates that x of k is equal to 1. X of k is equal to 1. Okay. So x of k is equal to 1 for k is equal to 0. X of k is equal to 1 for k is equal to 1. X of k is equal to 2 for k is equal to 2, 3, 4, 5. So all values from 0 to 5 are equal to 1. Is that clear? So now we will plot this x of k and let us see what x of k will now look like. So if you plot x of k, that would be just so x of k would be How many samples should be there in x of k? From 0 to n minus 1. So here n is equal to 6. So therefore there are 6 samples, 0 to 5. Zero, 1, 2, etc. etc. This is n minus 1. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 6 samples. And what are the values? This is equal to 1. So what does this indicate? If you add all these complex exponentials, so which means if you add, that is sigma k equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of k wn, that is here it is w6 raised to nk is equal to delta n here in this example. This is the implication of this result. So which means you can also write w6 raised to nk sigma n is equal to, sorry, k is equal to 0 to 5 w6 raised to nk is equal to delta n. Is that understood? How will you interpret this? I will ask one of you to interpret this. What is your interpretation? Now, you can have many interpretations. Let us discuss all those. You have a signal here and you have a spectrum here. Now, what does this indicate? The spectrum for this signal is given by, that is a discrete spectrum for this signal is given by this. What does this indicate? Can anyone explain what is being indicated there? I will ask one of you. Lakshmi, you are present, right?
Yes, sir.
Lakshmi, what is your interpretation? There could be many interpretations. What is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Sir, when you find the Fourier transform of an impulse signal, it kind of multiplies, as in every sample gives the same value, as in this.
No.
I think it is a peculiarity of impulse signal that's highlighted.
Yeah, it's a peculiarity of the impulse that is being highlighted. You have seen that
That's
in the
right.
continuous time case, the spectrum, what was the spectrum of the impulse? All the frequencies were
Frequencies
present
are there in this impulse.
in
Yeah,
the impulse, from
Ah.
minus infinity to plus infinity.
Plus infinity.
Likewise, all the frequencies that are allowable here. What are the frequencies that are allowable here? From 0 to
0
n
to n
minus 1.
minus 1.
All frequencies are present in the discrete impulse. You have another name for the discrete impulse. Do you remember that? You talked about two kinds of delta functions. One was the Dirac delta and the other was the Kronecker delta. Do you remember those terms? The Dirac delta referred to delta t and the Kronecker delta referred to delta n. Delta n. So, which means that the Kronecker delta n can be represented as a sum of all frequency samples with the same strength equal to 1. Which means the DC component has got a value 1, fundamental frequency has got a value 1, first harmonic has got a value 2. Likewise, the
Till n.
last harmonic also has got a value equal to 1.
1.
Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, so now we will move on to another example and we will try to do that also. So this could have been represented as a matrix equation and then we could have calculated that very easily. So let us move on to another equation, another example, okay, so the second question is, sorry, x of n is equal to u of n minus u of n minus n. So please plot this signal and then we will start. everyone you will be having a piece of, you will be having a notebook and a paper and a pen, right? So you can start by plotting the signal. X of n is u of n minus u of n minus n. So u of n so u of n would start from n equal to 0 and continue up to infinity. So u of n minus n would start from n is equal to n and continue up to infinity. So if you subtract this, you will get the values from 0 to n minus 1. So if you put this as n minus 1, you'll have the values from 0 to n minus 1 like this. Is that clear? So all the values are equal to 1. So u of n minus u of n minus n, all the values are equal to 1. Now you are asked to find out what is the DFT of this signal, DFT of this signal. Can you find out that? I want you to find out what is this value. What is the DFT? Okay, for that let us write down the expression. X of k would be equal to sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1. X of n is 1 every time, so I can just write 1 into w raised to nk. So this would be just w raised to nk. So which we can write as, this is sum to n times of a geometric progression, which you can write as 1 minus r raised to a into 1 minus r raised to n by 1 minus r. So a is equal to 1. So therefore this you can write as 1 minus w raised to k n 1 minus r raised to n by 1 minus r. So r being w raised to k. W raised to k, the whole raised to n is w raised to kn by 1 minus w raised to k. Is that clear? 1 minus w raised to kn by 1 minus wn. Now you need to evaluate this. You have to evaluate this. How will you evaluate this? What is w raised to kn? What is wn raised to kn? Anyone? What is wn? What is wn? Meenakshi, you will be knowing. What is wn?
Wn is the frequency components.
No. How will you expand wn? It's a common
Okay, e raised to minus j 2 pi by
2 pi
n.
by n. So what is wn raised to n therefore? E raised to
E raised to minus j 2 pi.
2 pi. What is that equal
Into
to?
n, so that n cancels out. So 1.
So what is it? That's equal to 1. So 1 raised to k is equal to 1. So what does therefore the numerator become?
It
It
becomes
is 1 minus 1. So that's equal to 0.
0.
For k is not equal to 0. So there is an exception for k equal to 0. Why do you have an exception for k equal to 0 is because if you put k equal to 0, this becomes 1. And you are adding 1 n times, right? So, and it's equal to 1. So therefore this is equal to 1 for k is equal to 0. Is it understood? X of k, when k equal to 0 becomes sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1, w equals to 0. So this becomes 1. So n equal to 0 to n minus 1 becomes 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus etc. up to n times. So that's equal to, so that should be equal to n. I have written this as 1. So this So this is equal to n for k equal to 0. And for k not equal to 0, this reduces to 0. So what are the values therefore? How do you plot this spectrum? What is the DFT therefore? DFT is therefore this value is equal to n, and the rest of the values are equal to 0. Is that understood? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. up to n minus 1. Now, how will you interpret this? Arvind Palat, you are there?
Yes,
Arvind, ഇത് ഒന്ന് ഇന്റർപ്രറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് എന്താണ് മനസ്സിലായെന്ന് പറയൂ.
the DFT will have value only at 0.
So what does it mean? The DFT is equal to n into delta k. Is that clear? DFT is n into delta k.
Yes.
Okay, that's very good. You can relate this to the previous equation. So you have studied the duality theorem for Fourier transforms, right? You had studied the duality theorem for Fourier transforms. So we will be discussing the properties in the next class. So when we see the properties of the DFT, we will see that this is an illustration of the duality property of the discrete Fourier transformation. So we will see that later. So now I'll move on to my presentation. I'll take some 2 to 3 minutes to wind up today's class. Okay, so again, let me move on to the whiteboard itself. So because I can illustrate it better using the whiteboard. Okay, so now let me look at the signal. X of n is equal to some random signal. So x of n is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'll form a periodic sequence with this. X tilde of n is this periodic sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So it goes up to infinity. So this is one periodic sequence. And to illustrate that this is the 0, I'll put an arrow here. So here you have 0 index, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like this, -1, -2, -3, -4, etc. Like this. So this is a periodic sequence. So this will have an x tilde of k. You can calculate some x tilde of k, and you take one cycle of that, that's equal to x of k. So this is my origin. So I will put this as origin. Is it understood? X of n is the sequence. Now, I will also plot the sequence to illustrate that this sequence is plotted here. So this is x of k. Okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Now suppose if I define a new sequence x of n is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. I'll put a 0 at the end. Do you think that any information is additionally gained in this signal, in the new signal? So I'll call this as, maybe I'll call this for the time being as x1 of n. What is the difference between x of n and x1 of n? What is the difference between this x of n and this x1 of n? What is the difference? Is there any difference? Is there any additional information that is being conveyed? Is there any change in the energy or the power of the signal, etc.? You can comment on everything. So what is the additional information that you have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. I had a signal 1, 2, 3, 4. I choose to append a 0. That is, I choose to append a 0 at the end of x of n. So I get the new sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. What additional information do you get? I want you to make your interpretation. So can any one of you tell me what is your interpretation? If I put a 0 at the end, so I can also think of another sequence like this, for example. Let me look at another sequence. x2 of n. I'll put a 0 at the beginning. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is another sequence. Now what is this sequence? What is the additional information that you get? What do you think that you have made any change to the signal? When you went from x of n to x1n, and when you went from x of n to x2n. I am only asking you to make an intelligent guess. What differences do you observe between x of n and x1 of n? What additional information do you get? Or do you get any additional information in x1 of n? You are looking at x of n and x1 of n. Arjun Vishwanath, are you present in today's class?
Yes, sir.
Arjun, DSP special.
Sir, signals now.
Signals, right? Signals in there.
Signals 43.
43. Arjun x of n, x1 n I put a 0 at the end. Now, what information do you get additional? Or do you get any additional information?
DFT.
This has got nothing to do with the DFT.
Okay.
X of n had only 4 samples. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 samples. Let us assume that the samples are taken every millisecond. That's the sampling interval is 1 millisecond. So
okay.
At 0 instant, you get the sample value as equal to 1. So this could be the digitized sound at 1 millisecond. And at 1 millisecond, you have the amplitude 2. So the sound amplitude at 1 millisecond is equal to 2. Sound amplitude at 3 millisecond is equal to, 2 millisecond is equal to 3. The amplitude of the sound captured at 3 millisecond is equal to 4. So you have captured the samples at 0 millisecond, 1 millisecond, 2 millisecond, and 3 millisecond. You have captured only 4 samples. Now, after 4 millisecond, after the 4 samples are recorded, the recording has been stopped. Can you understand this, Arjun?
Yes, sir.
We have captured only 4 samples. We have not captured the 5th sample.
Okay.
We don't have any information of the 5th sample. So, which means you can consider the 5th sample as a 0. Is that clear?
Yes, okay, sir.
There is nothing there because you have not captured that information. So the 5th sample can be thought to be 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 0 essentially conveys the same information as 1, 2, 3, 4. Right?
Okay.
If I put a 0 at the end, so this is called a 0 padding. If I put a 0 at the end, That is, if I append a 0 at the end, I call this as 0 padding. So I'll write it here. This is very important. 0 padding. PADDING. So 0 padding. So 0 padding does not change the information content of the signal. Now, if I put a 0 at the end, 0 at the beginning, what does it mean? If I put a 0 at the beginning, what does it indicate?
We start the recording after the first millisecond.
No. We are capturing a signal, but we are delaying the signal, right?
I delaying this.
We have captured a signal and then we have delayed that.
Sir.
The first sample 1 should have appeared at 0 millisecond, but now it's appearing only at 1 millisecond. So you have a delay, you can think of a delay flip-flop there. So you have some kind of a delaying element there. So that delays the signal x of n by 1 sample. So it's now 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now this is different, right? X2n is different from
Yes,
x of n.
sir.
So if I put a 0 at the end, it is not going to change the signal. If I put a 0 at the beginning, it is going to delay the signal. Okay, so 0 padding therefore does not change. 0 padding therefore does not change. 0 padding therefore does not change the information content of the signal. So therefore, now you had this sequence x of n is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. You had an x of k here. X of k. How many samples will be there in x of k? How many samples will be there in x of k?
4 samples.
4 samples. X of 0, x of 1, x of 2, x of 3. So these are the 4 samples. And now the 4 samples represent omega k, right? Where omega k was equal to 2 pi k by n. So the first sample was at 0. The second sample was at 2 pi by 4 because n is equal to 4 here. The third sample was at what? 2 pi by 4 into 2, right? And the third sample was at 2 pi by 4 into 3, right? Is that understood? 2 pi by 4. First sample is at 0, that is k equal to 0. Second sample is at 2 pi by 4 into k equal to 1. 2 pi by 4 into k equal to 2. And 2 pi by 4 into k is equal to 3. So these are the locations of the samples. So which means the sampling intervals, that is x of 0 and x of 1, is spaced apart in the frequency domain by a sampling interval of 2 pi by 4 radians. Is it understood? Is it clear? If you have any doubt, you have to ask. Arjun, I'm asking you. Arjun, is this clear?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
2 pi by 4. So the samples are spaced apart by 2 pi by 4. Now, if I 0 pad and extend x of n, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. This will give you an xc of k. You see that xc of n and x of n has got the same information, and xc of k will give you, this is xc of 0, xe of 1, xe of 2, etc. up to xe, sorry, I'll write the rest also, xe of 3 and xe of 4, right? Now the spacing between the samples is 2 pi by 5 radian. Is that clear? 2 pi by 5 radian. Earlier it was 2 pi by 4 radian, now it is 2 pi by 5 radian. So in general, I also need to specify what is the length of the sequence. So, say for example, I have to write, if I write DFT, I write n DFT of x of t. So which means you say that the n-point DFT of x of n is equal to x of t. You understand? N-point DFT of x of n is equal to x of t. So this is the 4-point DFT of x of n. 4-point DFT of x of n. So if you are asked to find the 5-point DFT of x of n, you put a 0 at the end, then you find the 5-point DFT of x of n. If you are asked to find the 8-point DFT of x of n, what you do is you will put 4 zeros, that is you 0 paired by 4 zeros, extend this sequence to a length of 8, and then you find its DFT. So that gives you the 8-point DFT of x of n. So in general, you also represent this as n-point DFT. N-point DFT. I hope this is clear. When you talk about a DFT, you also have to mention this n-point DFT, n-point DFT, n-point DFT. Is it clear? Meenakshi?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's clear, sir.
This is clear. So, therefore, I will take just one more minute to wind up today's class. I'll do that very shortly. Don't worry. So I will just move on to my presentation once again, and I will stop my discussion with the last. This is the last 1 minute of today's presentation. Let me look at this matrix vector multiplication once again. How many multiplications do you require to find out one sample of x of k? How many multiplications do you require to find one sample of x of k? Meenakshi, you are asking the question. Can you explain what is the? Can you give me what is the number of multiplications required?
Sir, just for one sample,
One
it will
sample,
be
just
n.
for one sample.
It will be n multiplications.
N multiplications. So how many samples are there? In
N
x of k,
samples are
there
there.
are n samples. So how many multiplications are required in total?
N into n.
N into n, that is n square
N
multiplications
square.
are required. Now, there is a
Okay.
very important distinction that I would like to bring to your notice here, everyone's notice, is that when you talk about a analog circuit, when you talk about an analog circuit, x of t represents the output of some sensor, right? X of t could be the output of a microphone. X of t could be the output of a, let's say, of a temperature sensor. Usually you have this temperature sensors, you have the output in the form of a current that is mapped to a given temperature. Maybe that mapping could be linear or non-linear, which you have to correct that somewhere in some other circuit. So if that mapping is assumed to be linear, a current is mapped to a temperature is mapped to a current. Say for example, I could be some constant into the temperature. So in that case, the mapping is said to be linear. And then you will require a current to voltage converter. So you would have studied current to voltage converters using operation amplifiers. So you require a current to voltage converter to convert this to an equivalent voltage. So you have a voltage corresponding to a temperature. And that mapping from the temperature to the voltage could be linear, or in some cases it could be non-linear, in which you might require to correct this. Okay. So the signal that comes from the sensor is therefore coming from a real world signal. So that signal x of t will take only real values. Say for example, you can have x of t to be a sinusoid. You cannot have x of t to be a complex exponential. X of t cannot be a complex exponential. But as we had discussed and we have been trying to stress this from the beginning. DSP accepts numbers. A digital signal processing system accepts numbers, processes these numbers, and produces output numbers. So a digital signal processor or a processing system accepts numbers, then uses a number processing algorithm to process these numbers and produces output numbers. So it's essentially a number processing algorithm. So which means that this gives you an indication that x of 0, x of 1, etc. up to x of n minus 1 can be complex numbers. So there is no restriction to the input signal being real. It is not essential that the input signal is a real valued signal. For example, you can have a mathematical operation on a signal that is acquired. Say, for example, I choose to delay every frequency by 90 dB. So, which means I multiply the signal by e raised to j pi by 2 radian. So, e raised to j pi by 2 radian is j. So, if I multiply an input signal by j, the value of the input signal would be complex, therefore. So, now it is j into x of 0, j into x of 1, etc. So, that becomes imaginary. So, I can have a mathematical operation. So, it will not translate to a equivalent physical circuit, but in a mathematical perspective, you can have a complex valued input coming in. So x of 0, x of 1, etc. could be real or could be complex. In general, they can be complex. And you also see that this Wn raised to 0, Wn raised to 1, etc. are complex values. So all these are complex values because these are complex exponentials. So you are talking about complex multiplications here. So n square is the number of complex multiplications. N square is the number of complex multiplications. For example, x of 0 could be of the form a plus jb, and this could be of the form c plus jd. So in just one multiplication, a plus jb into c plus jd, you have 4 complex multiplications, right? Meenakshi, are you getting me? If I multiply a plus jb into c plus jd, a plus jb into c plus jd, that is ac minus bd plus j into ac, sorry, j into ab plus bc. So that becomes 4 complex multiplications. So to compute just one complex multiplication, you require 4 real multiplications. So therefore, to compute n square complex multiplications, you will need to perform 4n square real multiplications. So which means the digital hardware or the digital software that you are going to design will need to perform 4n square multiplications. Now the issue is when the value of n is large. Say typically n can be 2 raised to, let's say for example, it can be 2 raised to 8. These are typical values. 2 raised to 8 is only 256. 256 samples of speech could take only a few milliseconds. A few milliseconds you will not be able to hear even. 256 samples, so for example, if you have a speech of 4 kilohertz, 4 kilohertz is the maximum frequency, you have to sample at least 8 kilohertz. Let us say you sample at 10 kilohertz. So what is the sampling interval if you sample at 10 kilohertz? What is the sampling interval? If it is at 1 kilohertz, what is the sampling interval? It is 1 millisecond. If you are sampling at 10 kilohertz, what is the sampling interval? It is only 0.1 millisecond. Right? So if I have 256 samples, that constitutes only 25.6 millisecond. And you will not be able to hear that sound. Is it understood? It's so small a number, 25.6 millisecond, which corresponds to 256 samples, is so small a number that you will not be able to hear that. You will not be able to hear that sound because it exists only for 25.6 milliseconds. You will not be able to distinguish anything from that. So even for this 256 sampled sequence, the total number of complex multiplication is 256 the whole square, that is 2 raised to 60. You will require 2 raised to 60 multiplication. Or 4 into 2 raised to 16 real multiplication. So you see that the computation is going to be very difficult. So you will have to look at alternate ways to speed up the multiplication. Okay. That we will discuss in greater detail when we go on to the second module. So for the time being, let us understand that this computation of the discrete Fourier transform is a highly computational intensive process. Okay. I think we have exceeded our allotted time by about 20 minutes. My class should have ended by 1 o'clock. So, because of my non-familiarity with the writing tablet, so I took more time than I anticipated. Okay, so we will stop with this. I know there are certain issues. Some of the issues would be related to your bandwidth. If you have any issue, please feel free to inform me. I can come one-on-one, but that will be at my convenience, and then I can maybe try to teach you in person, or maybe I can try to answer your doubts. So I will upload the link to the YouTube video lecture, a link to a YouTube file on my Moodle page, which you can refer. Okay, so that will be all for today. Thank you all. We will continue on Tuesday. So my suggestion to you is that my classes are on Tuesday afternoon and on Friday forenoon, right? Abhishek?
Yes, yes, sir.
It seems Abhishek, Lakshmi, you are there.
Sir.
So would you prefer to have this outside the office hours? Because during the office hours I might be otherwise engaged. So it will be convenient for me